Good evening. This is Impact 2022, our continuing conversation where we talk about a number of different issues, different topics, current events. We talk about them all from different perspectives: the Christian perspective, the male perspective when we have males on, female perspective when we have females on, from all the different perspectives. This is a place where we have open dialogue and continuing conversation where we're able to touch on different issues, whether they be tough issues, light issues, whatever. We touch on the different topics of the day. And as always, we encourage people to type their questions and their comments into the comment section. This is a conversation. This is a journey that we take, a journey of conversation. And so we encourage you to put in your comments into the comment section, your questions into the comment section so that we can continue in dialogue and continue to go on and communicate effectively about these issues. Our journey is always to have open communication that you may not have the opportunity, or we may not have the opportunity to have in other settings, and also to come to some conclusions if we can. And so in order to do that, again, we always suggest that you type in your comments and your questions. As always, we jump directly into topics. We don't dilly-dally around. We don't waste time. We run into it. Three things that we're going to kind of point at and then to kind of come to a culminating point and just hit right into it. Number one, recently, we've talked about this numerous times over the couple of years that we've had this program. Another fraction in churches has gone on. So you have the Louisiana Methodist Church just recently voted that some of the church were going to leave the conference, not leave the Methodist Church, but leave the conference that they're in the Louisiana area and branch off on their own. And the reason being, it's one of the common reasons that's been going on. This happened with the Southern Baptists. This happened with Methodist organizations throughout different parts. And this has happened with some other denominations as well. But it's back to the LGBTQ plus conversation about whether or not certain people can be clergy, whether or not certain people could be members, the positions that the churches have to take, and they vote. They're voting and going back and forth about whether or not, who's right, who's wrong in these situations, and how they're going to approach it. And as a result, there has been some split, and some churches have moved out. Just recently, in the past couple of weeks, that this has occurred. We constantly sit back and talk about different issues. My question has always been, why is this particular topic so important for so many people? There are so many things that we talk about as the Christian church. Why is this particular topic such a fractioning topic? Why does this break churches? So many churches, and in the recent, so many churches. What about this identity of certain people and choices that people make and lifestyles that people live? Why is this particular one so fractioning? We never had a vote to decide whether or not we're going to let people who lie a lot stay in the church, or we're not. Churches aren't breaking up because they're saying, well, we got too many liars in here, or we got too many people who have professions where they have to lie all the time. But this lifestyle choice, this identity, this path that certain people take, that's one that fractures us. And so it's jarring. The next one is, and we talk about this gentleman a lot, partially because I have respect for what he does. It was a comedian, Dave Chappelle, who, again, I talk about a lot, was on Saturday Night Live just recently. And he gave his comedic take, a monologue. And his monologue touched on a lot of different issues. It touched on a lot of the anti-Semitic topics that have been going on. Touched on some of the people who've been talking, Kanye West, who we've talked about on this particular program, Kyrie Irving. And it talked about how people have a perception, or can have a perception that Jews do one thing. But he was very clear in his comedic take There's certain things you just can't say. You just don't need to be saying, or if you're going to discuss it, you don't say it in the way that some of these celebrities have said it. And he was attacked. He was attacked as always because of what he said. He was attacked because of his comedic style. One of the Anti-Defamation League, one of the comments that they made was that it's ironic that people always want to make light of the situations that the Jewish community, anti-Semitism in the Jewish community, and so he's been attacked. There is no question that his comedic ability is high, but it's just the fact that the topics that he chooses aren't really those of which certain groups want to listen to. And then the third one is you have a superstar, and we've talked about this. I touched this a little bit. Superstar, Taylor Swift. She's a singer, a country singer, pop country singer, whatever you want to call her. She has millions of followers. She dropped a video, I guess you would call it nowadays. I don't know what the common term is that people use. I don't know if it's still videos or whatever, but it was for her songs. And in one of the videos, it was a reflection of her. And so she was basically talking about herself. She's one of those people who really narrates and sings about her life and things like that. I'm talking as if I know, don't even know any of her songs, except for maybe one, because it comes on all the kids' channels. But so don't think I'm sitting here talking as someone who really knows her that well. But in this particular video, what it was a reflection on some of the things that she's been through, some relationships and things like that. And she looks down at a scale, and what the scale shows her is not her weight, but what the scale says is fat. Because at that moment in time, that's how she felt. She felt, and this is a very skinny woman, but I guess it was representation of the fact that she had identity issues, weight issues, all those kind of things that a lot of people deal with over the course of their life. Well, it's autobiographical, and at the same time, there were a bunch of people who then criticized her for using the word fat, or were saying, well, there's nothing wrong with being big, and all of these complaints, to the point of where she decided to take that part out of her video. Even though it was a representation of how she felt, it was a story that she was telling about herself and how she felt at the time. She had to take it out of her video. What do these three things have in common, and why did I bring those up today? And why ultimately is this a topic worthy of bringing to Impact 2022? The things that these three have in common is open conversation and open communication. Let's go back through. Taylor Swift was basically doing an example of how she felt in time, did a video based on how she felt, and was explaining how she felt about herself and her journey and what she went through, her struggles with weight. And other people have said, basically, you can't talk that way and feel that way about yourself. Not criticizing anyone else, but you can't even have the conversation about yourself because I don't like what you're saying. Second one, you have Dave Chappelle, who is a comedian. As everyone knows, a comedian's job, or everyone should know, a comedian's job is to be able to talk about topics in a comedic fashion that are hard or difficult for people to talk about or think about on a regular day. And so as comedians have done over the years, especially those of color, talked about issues, racism, police violence, many of the things that we talk about here, but they do it in a comedic fashion in order so that it's easy or easier, or it is more digestible for people to handle. But yet, when he went on stage and he talked about not advocating, not being hateful or hurtful or in any moment, but people, when he was talking about what's been going on, especially with a lot of the Jewish bashing that's been going on by some celebrities, and he talked about it, and again, he didn't participate in it, then he gets bashed by some. And I don't want to overplay it, but he gets bashed by some, Anti-Defamation League and some others, because he made light of the situation. That seems silly because that's what a comedian does. So he can't talk about a situation in the comedic fashion, which is his chosen profession. And then we come down to the last one, and that is the churches breaking up over issues of LGBTQ. Because for some of them, they don't want certain people to be clergy. They don't want to allow other churches to have certain people to be clergy in their organization, or they want to have it, and the organization is not. They're not all on the same page about how they should run their churches when it comes to, again, that particular community, or individuals who choose a non-traditional lifestyle. And so because there's differences there, instead of being able to have differences in the same building, in the same ministry, in the same place, there's some fracturing, there's some breakup. These three things have in common is one of the things that, or the purpose of why we're here, or why we even have this particular program, is that where is the safe place for dialogue, for disagreement, and for diversity? If I can't voice how I feel without suffering consequences, then is there an opportunity for me to be able to give my opinion? Is there an opportunity for two sides to be able to talk and get to a different place? If I don't have an opportunity to be able to be in a room with different types of people, and I'm not open to different types of people, then how will I be able to communicate with those different types of people and give my views to them, or them to give their views to me? Safe places for dialogue, they're disappearing. It is not something that we have the opportunity to have. Now, the church one, it's more different. There's some more complexity there, because I understand. At the same time, opportunities to bring in people and to have communication and dialogue is not there if you're going to be able to separate and get away. As a person, as a church, and I believe, as people of faith, as people who think they have some kind of moral background, people who think they have something to provide to the younger generations who can teach. What you have to do is be able to not only give, but also receive. And that's listen as well as talk. And if when people talk, you condemn them, or you don't allow them to express the ideas and the feelings that they have, then it's not dialogue. It doesn't go both ways, and you can't help them develop. All you want them to do is to do what you ask them to do, or do what you say. And I think that that's the space that we're in. And we don't really acknowledge that or understand that. You're not going to come to the right answer immediately all of the time. I talk about my personal journey of growing up. When I was in high school, I thought a very specific way. And I got to college and I thought a very specific way. And as I left college, my mind expanded into a totally different way of thinking. It's a journey. It was a process for me. And so I had the ability to think through the opinions and the thoughts that I had until they were able to fully develop. We don't give that opportunity. If someone is thinking about their weight and thinking about their journey and talking about how they feel that they're fat, that's a Taylor Swift example, but yet they're not able to say anything about it, then that's not open dialogue, and they don't have the open opportunity to develop. And so it's why are we talking about this? Why is this important? As the church, I believe, and we've said this before, we have an obligation to make sure that we have a safe place of open communication and dialogue. Um, Many churches are very protective of their people, and they don't want a lot of creative and new ideas to be able to come in. Doesn't mean you have to accept them, but you can at least listen to what somebody has to say. If somebody wanted to come into a church and say, well, God isn't real, are you going to just shut them up and move them to the side? Or are we going to have some dialogue? Like, well, what are you talking about? Because I got some examples. I can tell you my story, my testimony of how God has been in my life, my family's life, down, and we can have this conversation. But to just shut people off and just kick them out, or just to shun them because of their conversation and it doesn't fit with what we're doing, I don't think that's going to help. It's dialogue. It's all about dialogue. Here's a comment. So if I feel and call myself crazy, I can't say it publicly because you should not call people crazy. Exactly. That comment exactly. It was another artist, Lizzo, for people who know. And again, people, I am not on music, so it sounds like that I'm really on things, but I'm not. She had a song where she talked about feeling spastic. Now, spastic is related to spasms, and there's certain groups that call spastic a condition. And because they were saying like, whoa, you can't use the word spastic because you're making light of my spasms and my condition, she ended up changing the lyrics to her song. Now, if she was feeling spastic, whether it's the technical, and let me use air quotes, the technical term or not, that's how I was feeling at the time. That correctly addresses how I felt. But yet you're telling me I can't say that. So I really can't tell you how I feel. I really can't express to you where I'm at. I really can't ask you for help because I'm not allowed to say the things I need to say. I think there's some caution that we all need to have, especially in the church, because we need to make sure if nowhere else is going to be safe, that it's going to be safe here for you to communicate. If you are full of hate and you want to say some hateful things, we're not giving you a platform to get them off your chest, but come here and you talk it out. Why do you have so much hate in your heart? What do you believe that is so crazy? We need to have safe places where people can talk and communicate and not be so much on this whole, let's, oh, you said the wrong word, let's condemn you, or let's hurt you, or let's, we are not letting people talk. I relate this directly back to what we've talked about over and over again here. And we've talked about the suicide rates. We've talked about the rates of suicide, especially among young people. And for many of them, I believe, and this is just me personally talking, some of the research that I've looked at, some of the articles that I've read, it's come to the point where there are not outlets or ability to talk about how they truly feel. You're like, oh man, they got the internet, they got Twitter, they got all this stuff. They can go out there and they can get in all these Facebook groups and they can say whatever they want to say. No. Those places are some of the worst places, because if you say something that's not in line with the majority of folk, you get lambasted, you get criticized for what you're saying. So you don't have a safe place to talk about how you feel. When I was young, the biggest concern for men was that you couldn't say certain stuff around certain people because they'll call you soft. So if you were sitting here and you broke up with your girlfriend and you really wanted to go to your homeboys and be like, man, I'm sad, man, I really miss this girl, like I'm broken. Might call you soft, man. Like, man, stop being a punk, man. You better get yourself together, blah, blah, blah. That was the worst thing that probably would happen. And that was the most that you kept inside. And we realized if you had real friends and true friends that you could say all of those things to, it was okay. You would have a safe place to talk. Because if you really was with your boys, you could say whatever you wanted to say. Man, I'm sad about this, or I need to cry about this, or do that. That was the worst situation. Nowadays, you can't say anything. If you went to the store, you was racially profiled by a particular group, you come home and you're just mad, you want to just talk cash trash about that group. Not because you really believe it, but because you need to get the steam off of your chest. Or maybe you believe it in the moment, but then somebody needs to be able to talk you down and bring you back. We don't have that opportunity Because if you slip up one time and say one bad thing, people are going to get you. There's no safe place to communicate. Trust and believe. I am not on the side of the group of people who want to go out here and just say irresponsible and reckless things. This may seem to be in direct conflict with what we talked about a couple of weeks back when we were talking about Kanye and him going out here and saying all of these harmful and hurtful things. And I'm saying, hey, why are we still buying his shoes and supporting him and letting him do this nonsense? Well, the difference is, for me, when I look at it, the difference is that you can speak and say how you feel, but you don't necessarily have to speak and be mean and trying to be directly hurtful to different groups of people. Even so much. One last example, and then we've pretty much hit it. There's a basketball player, very good basketball player, Hall of Fame basketball player. And this was a long time ago. It was 2007. I'm not going to say his name just because it's not a good story for him, so it doesn't make him look great. So there ain't no point in putting it out there like that. But he was in an interview and he was asked how he felt because at the time the world was changing. He was asked how he felt about back in the day when he played, if he had a player in the locker room, basketball player who was gay, and he was like, "No, I don't like gay people, man. I would feel no, ain't no way. I couldn't have me a gay teammate. I feel terrible about that. I wouldn't want him in the locker room with me." Now, back then, the comments were nothing. Like, no one cared. A couple of years ago, though, so this happened in 2000, early 2000s. 2000, I think it was like 15, 16, comments came back up, and they were like, "Oh, man, he's so hurtful. He's so mean. He's anti this, blah, 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 blah." Now, the reality of the matter is, if that's how you felt, that's how you felt. Let's be clear. If he felt uncomfortable with those people in the locker room with him, if he felt like he couldn't be in that kind of situation, that's how he felt at the time. There's a difference between saying, "This is how I feel about certain groups of people," and "These people are this, these people are that, these people are terrible." And you got to give people the space to say how they feel. Not to hurt people, but to say how they feel. If I say to you right now, I feel uncomfortable around older white women, I don't feel safe because I think they're going to call the police, or because they're scared of me and they're going to clutch their purse, that would be something that I felt, not that I'm pushing on them and saying that they're bad, but that's something that I felt based on what's going on around. Now, through conversations, that's when you have an opportunity to have conversations and be like, "Well, come on now, think about it, be rational." How many instances have you had where that's gone on? How many women, white women, have you met and seen who have not called the cops on you or not done anything? Like, are you really being rational, or are you being kind of a prisoner of the moment? And you could talk through it and be like, "You know what? I think I was just angry, blah, 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 blah." Or it could be the opposite, where you want to stick where you're at. But at least you have the opportunity for the conversation. We need to be smarter, I think, when we sit back and think about, is somebody being mean or somebody hurt? Is somebody trying to hurt people, or is somebody just expressing some topics that they need to think through or talk through? And are we given that space? I think as Christians, it's important that we give that space, especially because if we can't have that, if we don't give that space, then we'll never have that conversation. And if we, again, are the people who believe in redemption, if we're believing that people can change, if we're believing that people can be saved, then we have to always open the door for collaboration and conversation. And so in all of those situations, whether it be the Taylor Swift talking about how she feels, she needs to be allowed to speak how she feels. Whether it be the comedian, like in Dave Chappelle's example, where he wants to talk about issues in a light comedic way, so he can talk about the heavy issues to make them so that they're easier to digest. We need to allow that to happen. And for the churches, this one is a little tougher, but I believe if your doors are closed to certain groups of people, then how can you reach those people? I can't talk to you if I close the door in your face. And so to those churches who are splitting and moving this way and moving that way because of the whole LGBTQ situation, I don't know, but I just caution that whichever side you're on, are you making sure that your doors are still open to anybody who want to come in and learn about the love of Jesus Christ? And so that's where we're at. That's where I'm at. I appreciate the comment that came in. This is a topic that I think we should need to continuously look at ourselves. Are you open? Or do people feel comfortable speaking around you and being able to speak, whether they agree with you or disagree with you? Are they feel comfortable to be able to speak their opinions around you? If not, that means you're not open. And I think that we need to all be a little bit more open, especially in this climate with everything that's going on. Stop closing doors. Let's open them up. Keep the communication going. All right. Well, that's it. We didn't really go deep this week. Got a couple of good comments. Appreciate that. Please join us as always every week at the same time, 8 o'clock on Facebook and YouTube. Also join us on Thursdays for Thursday Thirst at 7 o'clock, same place, Facebook and YouTube. And then at 10 o'clock on Sundays for worship. Next week, we'll be right back here again. I know it's coming close to the Thanksgiving holiday, but we will be right here. Same time, same place. Appreciate you. This has been Impact 2022. Have a good one and have a good night.